Unexpectedly, Dangilo's secret funeral unveiled a chilling mystery, a love curse that silently dragged two neo-soul legends down the same path of destiny. A passionate love once blazing between music and soul had now transformed into a tragedy that silenced the entire world. He didn't attend her funeral, yet in the end, he followed her just months later, as if their hearts had an ancient rendezvous. The shocking details surrounding his final rites sent shivers down everyone's spines. Before we delve into this never-before-told story, don't forget to like and subscribe to join me in uncovering the painful secret hidden behind the love curse that claimed them both. Everything between them was never simple. The love between Dangilo and Angie Stone wasn't a sweet Hollywood tale. It was a neo-soul symphony blended with passion, vulnerability, and fate. Two souls met in an era when Black artists had to use music to voice their pain, and within that very song, they found each other, and then lost each other. No one imagined that the two voices who once rewrote the neo-soul map would ultimately close their lives in the same year, both carrying an unnameable wound, what people whispered about as the love curse. Angie Stone, the woman with a voice warm as honey and strong as steel, was Dangilo's greatest inspiration. They met in the late 1990s when both were reaching the pinnacle of fame. In dimly lit studios, amidst the raw sounds of guitar and the breath of neo-soul, they forged a bond they themselves couldn't explain. They needed few words, just a glance through the studio glass, and every emotion poured out into music. Their love crystallized in songs like Send It On, where Angie contributed vocals and Dangilo seemed to sing with his own naked heart. Insiders recounted that Angie was the heartbeat during Dangilo's most brilliant creative period. She was not just a lover, but a spiritual guide, a gentle yet strong hand that could pull him out of his darkest nights. She reminded him that music was not just glamour, but a prayer for wounded souls. However, as they both shone, that light began to consume them. Their love was too real, too deep, and perhaps that's why it couldn't endure. After they parted ways, Angie continued her career while Dangilo chose silence. He disappeared for years, no stage, no interviews, no new album. Fans called it the genius's pause, but those close to him knew it was a wound that never healed. In every song he wrote, Angie's shadow remained like an indelible mark. Then in March 2025, news of Angie Stone's fatal car accident in Alabama stunned the entire music community. A close friend of hers recounted, Angie was always careful driving. She never sped. It was raining that day. The road was slippery. No one understood what happened. The news sliced Dangilo's heart like a knife. According to sources close to People magazine, he was completely overwhelmed, silent for days. A close friend shared, Dangilo sat in his room all night, the light off, just listening to the tracks they recorded together. That April, Dangilo canceled all scheduled performances, citing unstable health. Until then, the public still believed he was just tired. But those in the industry knew Dangilo was battling pancreatic disease, a condition that rarely spares anyone. He chose silence, no announcements, no sharing. He lived his whole life this way, hidden amidst the light, concealing his pain behind his voice. And when Angie passed, it was said that his heart also began to give up. It is recounted that in his final days, Dangilo was still singing. He recorded an unfinished track, I Want You Forever, with Jay-Z in late 2024. The recording was never released, but according to a studio engineer, his voice at the time sounded like he was singing for someone who had already left. He was tired, weakened, but his eyes still held that look, the look of someone not yet ready to let go. Some say in that moment, he was no longer singing for the audience, but for Angie. Their story was not just about two individuals, but about souls drawn together by music, only to be consumed by that very music. In a world where skin color was once an invisible boundary, Dangilo and Angie Stone broke it with sound, something that touched everyone's heart without explanation. But the price of touching the extreme limit of emotion is sometimes the soul itself. After all, the curse might just be a rumor, but it exists as a way for people to explain the inexplicable, because no one understands why two souls who together wrote the music of love ultimately departed almost at the same time. In the eyes of fans, it's a tragedy. In the eyes of those who knew them, it's fate. A veteran music journalist once wrote, "D'Angelo and Angie Stone didn't just love each other, they reflected each other. When one side stopped shining, the other could no longer emit light." That quote still silences many today, because sometimes love stories don't end with a breakup, but with a void no one can fill. No one knows why he didn't go. A man who once loved, who once traversed light and darkness with her, was absent during the final moments of the woman who was once his whole world. It led everyone to wonder, was D'Angelo running away, or was he suffering in his own way? Angie Stone's funeral took place on a summer morning in Austell, Georgia, on March 14, 2025. The sky was deeply gray, raindrops falling as if blending with the softly playing neo-soul music. It was "Wish I Didn't Miss You," the song Angie once said she wrote from the feeling of a soul that couldn't let go. Over 100 attendees, from industry friends to loyal fans, carried the same unspoken question: where is D'Angelo? A source from People revealed he was totally overwhelmed, almost unable to speak a word when he heard Angie had passed. Those who saw D'Angelo afterward recounted that he looked lost. He didn't cry, just remained silent, sometimes gazing into the distance and humming the old chorus, "Send It On." A close studio engineer shared through tears. He said if he attended the funeral, he was afraid he'd break down right in front of her casket. All his life, D'Angelo chose silence over confrontation. That absence to outsiders might seem cold, but to those who truly understood him, it was a sign of unspoken pain. A close friend of Angie's recalled, "Angie once said Dee loved her, but that love hurt him. Maybe he didn't come because he feared being hurt again." That pain, combined with the pancreatic disease rapidly weakening his body, left D'Angelo a prisoner in the dark. It is said that in those days he stayed confined to his small New York apartment where the light was rarely turned on. The strange thing is, shortly after Angie was laid to rest, social media began to buzz with rumors that D'Angelo's funeral would be held secretly, a private ceremony only for family. No one knew who started the rumor, only that a few weeks later, a picture circulated, a wall of white flowers with a handwritten note, "Forever yours, Ma and MJ." Someone claimed the photo was taken in Richmond, D'Angelo's hometown. It was unverified, but that was enough for social media to explode. People said it was the final link between the two souls, where they were remembered together. Those in the music world said D'Angelo had planned to return to the stage in the summer of 2025 with a special performance at the Roots picnic, but canceled, citing health issues. When news of his death broke in October, many pieced the memories back together. It turned out he had known for a long time that his time was limited. In the studio, he recorded his last song, "I Want You Forever," with Jay-Z, just months before Angie departed. Some say his voice in that recording was hoarse and shaky, but his eyes were strangely calm. It was like he was singing for someone who wasn't there anymore, the engineer said, like Angie was still in the room. When Angie's funeral closed, Miles, their son, was seen bowing deeply before his mother's portrait. He said nothing, just placed an old photo on the coffin, a picture of all three of them in the studio in 2000 when D'Angelo was working on the Voodoo album. A close family friend recounted. "Miles told me, 'I believe Mom and Dad are still together somewhere.'" The statement sounded light as air, but everyone present that day felt a chill down their spine. The heartbreaking thing is that in every photo from Angie's funeral, D'Angelo's face is absent. Even flowers in his name weren't seen. But days later, a handwritten note circulated among the fan community with a message allegedly from D'Angelo. "I sent her my song instead of flowers." If that was true, then perhaps that was the only way he could bid her farewell through music. In their world, where music was the only language that could store emotion, the funeral was not just a separation. It was the continuation of an unfinished score. And perhaps that's precisely why D'Angelo didn't attend. He chose to keep that final movement for himself, so when he closed his eyes, the last melody he heard would still be Angie's voice echoing somewhere in his subconscious. It is said that Angie's funeral was the opening chapter to a double tragedy where love and loss intertwined so tightly they couldn't be separated. And Dangilo's absence, instead of being a final period, became a prophecy for what was to come. 7 months later, when he left this world, people finally understood maybe he never left her. He was just a little late so they could meet again in a place without tears. A veteran musician once wrote in a tribute, they couldn't attend each other's funerals, but maybe that's how love works for people like them, bound by music, freed by silence. The quote was shared tens of thousands of times. Amidst the tangled comments, one line made everyone pause. If music is the language of the soul, then perhaps they are still talking to each other somewhere. No one can prove it, but for those who heard them sing, who felt the unspoken connection between those two souls, the story of the funeral they couldn't attend is not just a tragedy, but a chapter of unfinished love written in silence, and closed with the very music they created together. And then one day, the sound vanished forever. The painful truth is that the family fractures didn't just begin after Dangilo's passing, they had existed for a long time. In 2000, the leaked private video completely devastated him. From a sex symbol, he became a victim of his own spotlight. He retreated from fame, avoiding interviews and stages for nearly a decade. Fans thought he disappeared, but in truth, he was just trying to mend the broken pieces of his heart. Someone close to him recounted, he couldn't forgive himself. After that incident, he was afraid of the lights, afraid of the stage, afraid of being looked at. That fear, combined with the pain of losing Angie Stone, is believed to have caused his rapid health decline. Another rumor suggested he didn't die from the disease, but because his heart was too weary to endure any more pain. Though unverified, anyone who listened to his music could feel it. When Dangilo died, many hoped the funeral would be a moment for the family to reunite, to bid farewell to an icon, but the opposite happened. The rumors, the arguments, the suspicion, and the silence all blended together like a distorted symphony. A distant relative revealed. Everyone had a different way of remembering him. Some wanted publicity, others wanted privacy, and between them, no one would yield. In the fan community, many began rewriting the story in their own way. Some painted Dangilo's family as a symbol of love and loss in Black American music. Others saw it as a repetition of the same old tragedy where talent always comes with pain. One fan wrote, "They didn't just lose a father, they lost the icon of a generation. And when the icon collapses, the family collapses too." It was then that people realized Dangilo's tragedy didn't end with the loss of an artist. It opened up a deeper story about silence, trust, and the things never spoken. In every interview, every public comment, one could sense the unbridgeable distance between those left behind. And perhaps that is his true legacy, not locked in a vault or written in a contract, but living in the hearts of those who wept listening to his music. In that picture, each person carried a role. Miles, the son preserving memories, the mysterious daughter, the one who doubted the truth, the old friends, the guardians of silence, and the public, the listeners who don't know what's real. Together, they form something both beautiful and painful, an unfinished symphony of love, loss, and the unspoken. And at the center of it all, Dangilo remains in silence, in rumors, in every unfinished note. Maybe he is gone, maybe he never left. But what's certain is that his family, his fans, and the entire music world still cannot let go. None of them ever thought this story would end like this. Two souls who once blended through music, who once wrote love songs that made the world cry, ultimately left life in the same year, like two musical notes dissolving into the air together. Angie Stone, the icon of strength who once sang about Black female pride with a voice like honey, passed away in a car accident in March. 7 months later, Dangilo, the man with a fragile heart hidden behind a quiet exterior, succumbed to the disease he had kept secret for years. The two names once written side by side in album credits now lay beside each other in obituaries. For fans, it was no longer coincidence, it was destiny. After Dangilo's death, the phrase, "the love curse of neo-soul," began to surge online. People noted that every couple who reached the peak of neo-soul, Erykah Badu and Andre 3000, Jill Scott and Liesl Williams, Lauryn Hill and Rohan Marley, all ended in heartbreak, separation, or silence. And when it came to D'Angelo and Angie Stone, everything seemed to close in ancient prophecy. Although no one had proof, the world tends to believe what's both beautiful and tragic. They called it the curse of love, as if love in black music always had to pay a heavier price than anywhere else. Some said it wasn't magic, but the raw truth of artistic souls, people who felt too much, loved too deeply, and lived too intensely. For D'Angelo and Angie Stone, it was more than two individuals. It was a symbol for an entire generation of black musicians stretched between two worlds, the light of art and the darkness of vulnerability. When news of their death spread, music magazines flooded with tributes. Rolling Stone called them the soulmates of a broken era. Billboard wrote, "Their deaths remind us that sensitivity is a double-edged sword. It creates masterpieces, but also destroys the creator." And online, those who grew up with their voices simply wrote, "They are gone, but their music remains." Yet behind the tears were questions left unanswered. Why did D'Angelo remain silent about his illness for years? Why didn't the family hold a public funeral or share pictures? And why did Angie Stone, who taught a generation to love themselves, die in an accident no one could explain? Everything was too quiet, too perfect, too unreal for people not to suspect. Relatives later revealed that in his final months, D'Angelo lived peacefully. No stage, no spotlight. He spent time with his son and wrote music. Some nights he lay listening to Angie's voice, old recordings from decades ago. A close friend said, "He told me when Angie smiled, the room lit up." Even when she was gone, he still saw that light. That belief made him fearless. A day before his last breath, he told Miles, "When I go, don't cry. Let our songs speak for us." And perhaps he truly left that way, no tears, only music. D'Angelo's funeral, if the rumors are true, was so small and intimate that no one would think it was for a legend. No red carpets, no cameras, only a few close friends, a few musicians who had shared his journey. They played his songs, sang together by candlelight, and when the final melody of "Lady" faded, all fell silent. Someone in the group said softly, "No one spoke." It was as if we were hearing him sing one last time, but from another place. The story ends in that silence. Two individuals, two souls, two voices that once made the world stop to listen now rest in two different places, or perhaps the same one. Though the rumors of the neo-soul love curse were never proven, people still talk about it, not because they believe, but because they remember. Sometimes a curse is just humanity's way of explaining things too beautiful to last. Perhaps the truth is simpler than all of it. They loved each other, they lost each other, and they left. No magic, no mystery, just two fragile hearts worn down by time and sorrow. But that simplicity is what makes their story immortal. Because true love, even when it ends, leaves an echo, a kind of echo only music can carry. Now, when D'Angelo and Angie Stone are mentioned, people don't just talk about songs like Brown Sugar, Send It On, or Breatha. They talk about two people, two souls who lived and loved fearlessly, even when the price was everything. They talk about how D'Angelo embraced his loneliness and turned it into music, how Angie transformed tears into song, and how their love, never written in books and without an ending, still lingers as an echo. In a world where everything is fast and easily forgotten, their story is slow, heavy, and real. It doesn't need an ending because their ending is the lesson, a lesson about the limits of love, the fragility of the soul, and the price an artist pays to turn pain into art. Perhaps that's how the world will remember them, not with tears, but with music. Music that carries love, sorrow, and the echo of a curse no one dares to break. The love of D'Angelo and Angie Stone was not just a relationship, but a symphony between two souls who touched the very edges of emotion. They lived, they loved, they were vulnerable, and they left the world with timeless melodies. The so-called love curse may just be a rumor, but what they left behind is real love, music, and pain blended into the immortal legacy of neo-soul. When the music plays, we can almost hear them somewhere, singing, crying, loving again. If you felt your heart resonate while reading this story, please like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to join us in exploring more hidden corners. the real stories behind the spotlight, where music doesn't just play but lives forever in the listener's heart. Thank you so much for staying with us to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any of our updates. Now, feel free to check out some of our latest and most popular videos showing up on your screen.